Well, hello there and welcome to the bathroom of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elfers for November 19th, the day of the Reformer. And here at the top of the page is a visual representation of the day of the Reformer. But we have us an image of, can you guess? I bet you can't. Boom! It's a lantern as well as an unlanterned lamp. It's also lit. I don't know if that's the best way to say that. Well, hey, you know what? No matter. Is that a good visual representation of the day of the Reformer? Hey, who's to say? It doesn't necessarily sound like it, but maybe as we get on with the read, we can make some connotations that better rein that in. Sometimes we don't, sometimes we do, but let's get on with the process here, as they say. You know, it's because it's not altogether important what the visual representational image is. It's more important that we wish you a happy birthday. That's right. Is it November 19th and it's your birthday today? If it is, I just want to say happy birthday. That's what's important around here. But you know, maybe this finds you late, as sometimes such things often occur. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're a busy individual, I imagine, not searching for your birthday on the internet. Oh, but maybe you are. That's right. At least not on the day. But in any event, if that's the case, I hope you had a happy birthday in that circumstance. But for everybody else who's joining us randomly, I want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before we dive in with the redirect, let's roll some dice. This is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake by rolling some dice. But I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And oh my lord, folks, we rolled us a 4 and a 4 for an 8. Straight to jail with the doubles there. What is synchronicity? You're probably wondering. Well, it's just you getting out into the world and letting the universe show you it's with you on your path. And you need what you call like a benchmark or a waypost of sorts. So the universe can show you you're going the right direction or can lead you in the right direction. And you do so, hey, what better than some numbers? That's right. Now, you don't have to go with what I rolled you, but it is probably advisable you take your own set of dice regardless. You know, the intention's there, but you can roll your own numbers. That said, you want to get some directional values, ascribe them to number sets. You also want to use some dice for time limits with which to go in those directions. But, you know, once you pick a place to start from and you reach the end of your first time limit and direction, you stop, compose yourself, and you get eagle-eyed for some signs. But you know what? Maybe there's no numbers. So you know what? In that case, you look for anomalies. Say, maybe you see some guy in a high-collared sweater walking down the street amidst a bunch of people who aren't wearing such things. A little ostentatious. That just screams anomalous. So you know what? Maybe roll yourself some numbers again. Find out how long to follow them for. Just the act of you taking a minute to roll out a number to find out how long to follow them, that's going to put enough space so it doesn't seem like you're creeping on them. But, hey, you know what? Maybe they notice you're following them. A little confrontational brouhaha breaks out. You know what? Just go easy. You tell them what's going on, even as ridiculous as it sounds. I'm just out here doing a synchronicity walk, and you happen to be the person that stood out amongst all the rest. You were like an anomaly, and so it was just crying out that the universe wanted me to follow you. Maybe you show them this video so you know that you're not screwing around. Show them your dice, and you know what? More often than not, they're going to join you. That's right. Or they're going to be like, that's cool, man, I understand. But let's go with the fact that they might join you. They go, okay, where do we go next? You go, no, man, let's see where you were going. Let's see where you were going. And you know what? Maybe they were just on their way to a lantern shop. Hey, maybe that's it. Maybe the day is just throwing us a theme here. The authors didn't intend it, but you know what? That's what's going on. They take you to a lantern shop and you just made a friend, and you know what? That's synchronicity for you, or at least an example of it. But you can get out there, find one out for yourself. That's right. See, taste, touch, feel the magic. I'm hoping you do. You do so if you get out there. But in any event, enough on synchronicity. I think you get the point. Let's dive in with your birthday read. All right. Your month is November. Your day is the 19th. Your sign is 26 to 28 degrees Scorpio of the Scorpio Sagittarius Cusp, the first day of as much. And your quality and elements is fixed water. Well, all right. November 19th, the day of the Reformer. Filled with a revolutionary spirit, those born on November 19 generally build from a starting point of change. It is not enough, however, for them to simply rebel. Reformers, they must carefully craft something new to take the place of the old, and furthermore, administer to it. Thus, they are an interesting blend of radical and conservative, anarchy and establishment. Themes of control or even repression can figure prominently in their lives, whether they be rebelling against such forces or themselves exercising them. And November 19th people are often taken up with the consolidation or administration of power, all right, whether it be in their family, social group, or career. They are extremely serious about how that power should be delegated and toward what end. It is quite likely that November 19th people will come in varying degrees of conflict with those who disagree with their methods. But there is little or any doubt in the minds of those born on this day that they are acting properly. Indeed, they may have something of a Nietzschean complex in which they justify what they are doing with words and philosophical principles, and thus run the risk of losing touch with prevailing social values. They must therefore observe themselves living and remain open to the criticism of others. November 19th, self-confidence most often runs sky high, but this can be a weakness as well as a strength. And many born on this day at one time or another fall prey to a kind of tragic hubris and risk bringing their entire life crashing down about their ears when they tempt fate or ignore its warnings. November 19 people are generally believers in free will, particularly the strength of their own will, but must also learn the lessons of restriction and caution. November 19 people often take the role of crusaders and champions of causes, and their politics and principles are usually in support of the common man. Yet they can have distinctly elitist tastes. They function well when dispensing wisdom and information to those around them, and due to their at times contentious, even pugnacious attitude, not only tend to bring out the best in people, but also the truth of the situation. In their book, there is no higher value than the truth and its dissemination. And those born on November 19th are very much of this world. They are extremely physical, sensuous, family-loving, and up-to-date people. And very rarely are they ignorant of the current state of affairs. They must, however, beware of becoming sensationalists and being swept away by the latest craze or fashion. It is important for them to remain grounded in traditional values and to exert their influence in a steady, solid, and non-hysterical manner if they wish to remain a lasting presence. All right, how about that for a interesting birthday breakdown? Let's dive into a little bit of a commentary. I tend to take some notes about what we just read, see if I can form a little bit more context for you, even though it's largely a lot of bit of reiteration. So let's see what I had to say here. November 19th, the day of the reformer. Filled with a revolutionary spirit, you build from a point of change, all right? But to ostensibly prosper, you must craft new things to replace the old and see to their implementation. The reading also claims you're an admixture of radical conservative, anarchy, and establishment. So just all over the board, it sounds like. Which, if I'm guessing right, may lend to this claim of control as well as repression. A firm grasp on things for a while, but absolute stymie when your efforts seem to run abreast of any one of the numerous constraints that you're controlled by. Razor-thin margin to traverse by any measure, all right? And to that end, you also know how things should be run or realized in order to thread that fine needle, right? And you can come into conflict with those who aren't otherwise so steady a hand, right? At least in such matters. So I like this mention of being objective about your expectations, as such things may be intrinsically difficult or next to impossible to realize. And by hearing as much from an outsider, preferably one who's trusted, who can keep you on track there, that might be what it takes to realize such a reality, that it's something that might not be able to be done. But I can totally see this kind of personality possessing a massive amount of self-confidence, like they said. And I'm glad that the reading relates the pitfalls of as much, as confidence is often only considered a strength, all right? And hubris factors into a good deal of the previous days that have been covered in the Scorpio period. So it isn't altogether surprising that this is getting mentioned. But maybe it is to you, who's to say. But you're also concerned with the truth of things, apparently. Also a little bit of a characteristic there with the period, as well as the Scorpio-Sagittarius cusp. And so a theme of the period, and you have a penchant for dispensing wisdom, it said, in a what the reading says is a contentious manner, and at times but that often brings out the best in people. For another Nietzschean element, I would argue, I think it's the will to power. That's right. That's if I'm remembering it right. Any event, philosophy was a while back for me. That said, the reading finally relates that you're earthy types. I think I'm getting that right. So say you're sensuous, family-loving, as well as up-to-date. But it warns of being a sensationalist and getting carried away with getting carried away. But all that being said, it's a very well-rounded birthday in my mind, despite it being a sun-ruled day. And I'll get into why that is here in just a second as we dive in with your numbers and your planets. All right, your numbers and your planets. Those born on the 19th of the month are ruled by the number 1, as 1 plus 9 equals 10, and 1 plus 0 equals 1, and by the sun. And because of the fact that November 19th people are born on the first day of the Scorpio-Sagittarius cusp, which says theme of revolution in parentheticals, which is also strongly influenced by Pluto and Mars, Scorpio rulers there, as well as Jupiter, which is Sagittarius's rulership, there will be a strong manifestation of dynamic, creative, or potentially destructive energy in their lives, as well as a tendency to be ambitious, expansive in thought and plans, and aggressively, even ruthlessly in parentheticals, oriented towards success. And those ruled by the number 1, well, they tend to dislike restraint and enjoy being first in most matters, just like the sun and Jupiter, as it turns out. And I mention the sun because typically when I read a sun day or sun-ruled day, it just kind of focuses on one element and it just lasers down on it. And then that's the whole breakdown. It's just all the different facets that apply to that one facet. And here I didn't see that much of it. That's why I mentioned it. And I think I say as much in the notes, so I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. So let's get into the notes here with your numbers and your planets. Number 1 in the sun for a rulership, usually hyper-focused on one element to the extent the entire breakdown concerns that one element and how it affects everything else. But just as your planet rulership and co-rulerships is a complex affair, so was the breakdown. All right, the multi-fanged rulership in my mind totally speaks to the various conflicting previously mentioned elements, even if they have no influence on the matter, which they probably do if we're to lean into the idea of astrology, naturally. That said, there are so many planet elements here to consider, it's almost too much to go over in depth. Pluto with its shadowy elements, Jupiter with its expansive elements there and striving to be on top, and Mars with its aggressiveness and sometimes its anger, which it lends to destruction, and the sun with its power to magnify and its fire. And the sun shares a lot of stuff with Jupiter too, so a lot of elements kind of complement each other for better or for worse. What else do I have to say here? It really merits its own video, all of those dynamics, so I found it really interesting. All that to say, the read seems to make a lot of sense the way it's written, now that your rulerships have been conferred in that matter. So, like I said, I hit this and I was like, whoa, there's so many different elements going on here. And I don't really know that much about astrology, just what I'm picking up from the book. So when all those things came into juxtaposition there, with all the different planet rulerships, I was like, wow, that must be a really interesting individual to meet, if any and all of this happens to apply, naturally. In any event, let's spin your numbers and your planets, so let's dive in with your tarot. That's right, one of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies. But hey, it's your birthday. It's fun to see new and exciting things. I don't know if it's exciting, but you know what? We can dive into it, see what it has to say. We don't have to take it home with us and start dealing out the cards, do we? So we can just leave it here in the birthday read. So let's get it. Your tarot. The 19th card of the major arcana is also the Sun. A powerful card, the reading says. It can be considered the most favorable of the major arcana and symbolizes knowledge, vitality, as well as good fortune. It must be noted, however, that misusing such power can bring disastrous effects, and the danger of being overly self-confident has already been noted above. And November 19th people must take particular care in this respect. All right, a little bit of a sparse entry there with the tarot. I don't know that I did much better, but hey, let's dive in and see if I added anything. The Sun, the most favorable, I've lost my place already, most favorable card in the major arcana, all right, for knowledge, vitality, as well as good fortune. But warnings of misusing that power, much like, and maybe even, that pesky hubris that was previously mentioned. So yes, mind that self-confidence, all right? Be objective and open to hearing an outsider's opinion. Hey, what's it gonna hurt, right? Doesn't mean you have to implement it. Sparse card entry, like I said, but it's also interesting that it's also a Sunday. The Sun only happens once a month because it's the 19th card of the major arcana. 17th, the 19th. A lot of the other ones get repeated because they're the way they consolidate numbers. But in any event, that's been your tarot. Let's move on to your health. All right, your health. November 19 people must be extremely careful of incurring sudden accidents just when they feel most confident. Learning to evaluate their situation in a more realistic fashion will even out their highs and lows, and also diminish the danger of sudden catastrophes. Many November 19th people display great resistance to introspection or psychological work, but sooner or later, some form of self-study should be considered. And those born in this day tend to eat what they want, when they want it, but their health will definitely improve if they pay more attention to their diet, and perhaps read some established works on the subject. Vigorous exercise is recommended for these active people, particularly running or jogging, aerobics, tennis, racquetball, and other competitive one-on-one sports. All right, what do I have to say about your health here? Let's dive in, shall we? Careful you don't incur sudden accidents. All right. Interesting. This is advice that they usually give thrill seekers and people who like to dive into danger. It's usually reserved for them. Even those who properly prepare, they still get this warning. What else do we have? Because they get the broken bones and such. That said, perhaps this is because of that old hubris there. Who's to say? Evaluate your situations in realistic fashions, apparently. The reading also claims you resist psychological and self-work. All right, maybe that's that Mars-Jupiter-Sun dynamic there. Who's to say? You rebel, you. It said you were a rebel. Maybe that's why. But like other Scorpios, it is highly encouraged and recommended, mostly to prevent physical ailments, because in a lot of cases it says it manifests into actual issues, specifically with the eliminatory systems like your colon and such. You get that Crohn's disease. Nobody wants that. You go see a therapist instead of that. Or find a really good friend who doesn't mind hearing you complain about the same old stuff all the time. Because sometimes that's what we got to do. Complain about the same stuff. In any event, there's no real diet advice except to pay attention and to learn. So it's kind of a cop-out in a way. I mean, they might as well not have even mentioned it. Outside of the fact it says you like to eat when you want and what you want, so maybe they needed to. But consider, they didn't even consider the Mars diet of avoiding red meat, sugar, and alcohol and things like that. Or seeking hearty foods, which is kind of a Mars thing to help with the aggression or whatever the logic is there. So they could have at least mentioned that, I figure. But vigorous exercise is recommended, and maybe your diet is just as complex as the day was, as your rulerships were. So maybe it was too much, too complicated for them to get into. I don't want to totally poo-poo the effort they put in. Maybe there's a reason they didn't dive into it. It was just its own entry altogether. But that being said, that's been your health. So let's move on to some advice. All right, your advice. Learn the value of silence. Still your rebelliousness. Prepare yourself carefully for life's challenges and rein in your impulsiveness. And don't place yourself above the laws of God or mankind. All right. Pretty interesting. Pretty lofty expectations there, too, here. What do I have to say about your advice? Oh, it's in the book. I ran out of space on the notebook here, so I had to write it in the book itself. Blasphemy. A rebel, you might say here. All right. Learn the value of silence, they said. All right. Heard this one before, as it turns out. Cricket, cricket, right? There's power in it, too, as it turns out. A certain dictator would do it. Be standing in front of a stadium with people, little brouhahas and, talking. He wouldn't start a speech until you could hear a pin drop. You can probably guess who that was. So maybe that piques your interest more. There's power in silence. But I think they want you to listen, quite honestly, all right? So rein in your impulses and don't go too hard, too fast, just because you're sure, all right? You can be objective about things, measure them out. You could come crashing down and chance ruin otherwise. All right. You may be a god to yourself, but without self-knowledge, which you might not have. All right. It's probably not going to work out for you in that area as well as you might think it would. So yeah, don't poo-poo self-knowledge. Figure things out about ourselves. It's only going to help you in the long run. I don't do well with that. I know this is how I react when this happens. And this is like... And sometimes we evolve. We have to realize what new changes are going to come around because we've evolved. That's right. It might just help you better. And that being said, if you don't, said God is probably an empty shirt. Or maybe a lame duck in an empty shirt, who's to say. In any event, that's been your advice. All right, let's take the energy down just a hair and move on to your meditation. All right, your meditation. Let's get it. In silence, the truth can at last speak. Oh, they said there was power in it. Once more, in silence, the truth can at last speak. Okay, I was about to say spark, but I wasn't looking at it right. I said it right. That's okay. Hey, there's been your meditation. It's your birthday, so I'm not going to try to throw some spin on it or evaluation in my mind. That's just for you. That's just your meditation. It's just for you on your birthday. All right, in any event, with your meditation in the can, as it were, let's move on to your strengths and weaknesses. All right, let's find out where you prosper and where there's a little bit of a deficit, if you like. All right, your strengths, your contemporary, your convincing, and your constructive. The 3 C's. That's right, contemporary, convincing, and constructive. But your weaknesses now, what could those be? How about we hold up that objective mirror, but flip it around to the side that blows your face up? The one where we can see all the blemishes, right? And all the wrinkles and pock marks, if you like. All right. Your weaknesses, you're preoccupied, overconfident, your resistance. All right. I think we knew all those based on what was going on in the reading there. But you know what? I think your strengths could help you surmount all of those issues, right? So you're constructive, you got the ambition from what I recall, and you just got the power. You know what you're good at, and you're going to go after it. You know what? And if you want to go after this resistance and this overconfidence, you're going to do it. So in any event, there's your strengths and weaknesses. Let's move on to those born on this day. Oh, let's see who shares your company. And when we get in with those, when we dive in with those born on this day, I like to segue over something that I find important, and that's figuring out our passions. You see, too often I meet folks out in the world, ask them what they do, and more importantly, if they like it, they oftentimes don't. And the reason being, I think, is because they just haven't had the time to put in the effort to figure it out. Get out of school, right into the first job that comes along, and maybe you just keep following that pesky cycle, and maybe when you finally find one that gives you the money you need, well, you just start climbing that corporate ladder. And that's the fatal flaw there, is that it has nothing to do with what you want to do. But it's easy, maybe. You know what? It's guaranteed money, if you like. So maybe you got to sacrifice a little bit. But maybe you don't, all right? And so here's I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to examine those things, not just to see who shares your birthday, but what they did to, get in the map, or get in the book rather, get their stamp on the map. What made them famous, if you like? Maybe it wasn't their passions, but you know what? Maybe it can just inspire us. Put the bug in your ear, if you like, to figure out our own passions. And if you already know what those are, well, maybe to make them financially viable. But if you already know your passions and making lump sums of money, hey, congrats. Let's just see what lottery you drew with those born on this day. All right, let's get after it here. We start off with Martin Luther, the German religious leader and reformer, a writer, a philosopher, and a composer. We also have James A. Garfield, a U.S. president, a Civil War general, anti-slavery, radical Republican, and assassinated. We also have George Rogers Clark, a U.S. military officer, frontiersman, a Northwest Territory explorer, and part of the Lewis and Clark expeditions. We also have Indira Gandhi, Indian Prime Minister, Nehru's daughter, and assassinated. Man, we're getting a lot of these today. Charles I, British king, beheaded. Oh, my Lord. Ferdinand de Lesseps, French Panama Canal engineer. Doesn't say assassinated, so there we go. Maybe we broke the cycle. Billy Sunday, the evangelist, Presbyterian revivalist, and a baseball player. I didn't know that. Ted Turner, the media mogul of CNN, TNN, WTBS, the owner of the Atlanta Braves, the Hawks owner, and the Hawks for basketball, and America Cup's winning captain. That's yachting, I believe. Probably wrong, but who's to say? Jodie Foster, the film actress and director of Little Man Tate and The Beaver, if memory serves. It's not written here, but I'm guessing. We have Jean Kirkpatrick, U.S. UN ambassador. Billy Strayhorn, jazz composer, an Ellington arranger, and a pianist. We also have Mikhail Kalinin, Soviet Presidium chairman, Bolshevik revolutionary, and a Lenin comrade, it says. We also have J.R. Capablanca, Cuban world chess champion. I think that's the first one of those that's been in here. We also have Calvin Klein, the clothes designer, Dick Cavett, the TV talk show host, Larry King, the CNN TV talk show host, Hiram Bingham, U.S. Senator and archaeologist, it says. Rediscovered Machu Picchu. How about that? A lot of girls wouldn't have what you call photos to put on their Tinder accounts without him. All right. We also have Meg Ryan, the film actress, Gillo Pontecorvo, Italian film director of The Battle of Algiers, Roy Campagna, I think, or Campanella. He's a Brooklyn Dodgers baseball catcher, a 3-time National League MVP, a coach, and paralyzed in an accident, it says. And you know what? We've continued on this day without any jazz saxophonists. It's like every day had a jazz saxophonist except the past 3. So you guys are continuing to break the cycle. There you go. And that said, that's been those born on this day. Hopefully, maybe you didn't take any inspiration per se, but you know what? Maybe at the very least, me putting the bug in your ear can help stir up the fires. You've got the sun rulership, the Jupiter rulership, the Mars. Get aggressive with it. You're going to get this if you're having trouble figuring out your passions. That's right. And Pluto's got the dark, shadowy elements there. Hey, it might just lend to that too, because it lends to a lot of other elements also. That being said, that essentially rounds out your birthday read. Except to say, your season is fall. Your sign, once again, is Scorpio. Of the Scorpio Sagittarius cusp, and your quality and elements is fixed water. What's that mean? Well, that's another video altogether, but that'll be at the end card there if you're interested. But this has been November 19th, the day of the reformer. I know we didn't really put any connotations with the lanterns, but I don't know, maybe you can figure that out. The sun rulership does have some fiery elements, so maybe that's part of it. But that said, this has been The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Used Elfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description. Save you the trouble of typing it in the browser there. If it's something you're interested in picking up, hey, it's got every birthday in it. You can dive in further with your zodiac signs and what else is in there? Planets and such, but it makes a great coffee table book, even if you're not interested, because I'm telling you what, you have some company over for a party, you don't really know how to get the party started, the ice broken, this is going to do it. Read some folks' birthdays. It's going to get the conversation flowing. And you know what? It's going to get that ice broken in a literal or figurative fashion, considering its girth. But that being said, that's not what's important here. What's important, like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday. That's right. So happy birthday. And remember, there's power in silence, apparently. All right, okay. And let's not forget your daily numbers. Your 4 and your 4 for an 8. Get out there and let the universe show you it's with you on your side. See, taste, touch, and feel the magic. And if you do, I hope you do if you get out there and see if you can realize it. In any event, once again, happy birthday. For everybody else that joined us, I hope you enjoyed yourself and you join us for your birthday read. But once again, happy birthday, all right? Take care of yourselves.